Welcome to Season 3, Episode 8 of the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. Today, we have a remarkable guest who has transformed his life from corporate to entrepreneurial pursuits. Alan Lazaros, founder, CEO, and CFO of his own podcast, is a peak performance coach, entrepreneur, and advocate for personal growth. Alan's journey began with a near-death experience that prompted him to reevaluate his choices and embrace self-improvement. He's not only survived, but thrived, taking his podcast from ground zero to a multiple six-figure business. With over 1,680 episodes, Alan shares strategies to impact lives across the globe. Get ready for an insightful conversation as we delve into Alan's past, explore his present work, and discover what he envisions for the future. Let's get inappropriate. Ready? Welcome to the Inappropriate Growth Podcast. I'm Paul Angelle, your host, and I'm very happy today to introduce our guest, Mr. Alan Lazaros. Alan, who also has a podcast. To save me from doing it, why don't you tell our listeners where you are and how you got there?
Okay, so I'll give you I have a long version, I have a short version, and I have a mid version. I'll try to go with the short to mid.
I want the best.
So you want the best version?
Right.
All right, I'll try my best for the best version. So I usually start with podcasts that do have video. I usually say I'm hoping to hit puberty at 36. I look very young. You also look very young. So I know you can relate,
53.
But it's unreal. Look very young.
I mean, we're below sea level though. Our humidity's miserable, but it makes us look way younger than we are. It's like we're pickled, I think.
Nice. So I'm trying to condense 35 years into one sort of 5 to 10 minute segment here. So the place to start is I was born into adversity for sure. Father passed away when I was 2. He was 28. I had a stepfather from age 3 to 14. And I playfully refer to that part of my life as boats and BS. And the reason I do is because it was ski trips, and we had a yacht, and it was deep sea fishing, and it was hunting and fishing, and it was the 90s .com bubble. So my stepdad did very well. He worked for a company called AGFA, which did hospital computers during that time. And so we were upper middle class, and my mom and stepdad had what I refer to as a fun paradigm. So their goal was to have as much fun as possible. And so anyways, when I was 14 years old, my stepfather leaves, takes 90% of the income with him. And that was the hardest year of my life, I now realize. In hindsight, I did not know this at the time. I've since sort of rewatched the movie of my own life. I've done a lot of therapy in my 30s, and I've really rewatched the movie of my own life several times. It's like when you see a movie as a kid, and then you see it again as an adult, and now you kind of get it. It's a lot like that. So the first thing to understand when I'm telling you this story is I didn't understand any of this at the time. I do now. Better than I did. So stepfather leaves, takes his entire extended family with him. Haven't spoken to or seen a single one of them since. I did speak to my stepdad a little bit on Facebook Messenger, but haven't seen him since. That same year, my mom gets in a fight with my Aunt Sandy, her sister, and my Aunt Sandy sort of ostracizes us from that side of the family. To this day, I've only seen one member of that side of the family who came back, my cousin Jeff. And when we were the Lazaroses, so my real last name is McCorkle. My birth father's name is John McCorkle. He was part of a big Irish Catholic family, Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. And when he passed away and my stepdad came into the picture, we kind of didn't associate much with the McCorkles because we were trying to be the Lazaroses. I took my stepdad's last name when I was around 7. A lot of times people who are Greek will say, Lazarus? Because I'm blonde hair, blue-eyed. I'm not a hair on me, so I'm not Greek, and so that's a very Greek last name. But anyways, so I took his name around 7. We were the Lazaroses. He left at 14, took 90% of the income with him. He got the yacht and the apartment building. We got the house and the dog. Sister moved out that same year. So kind of didn't realize this until my 30s, kind of lost 3 families by the time I'm 14 years old. My trauma response to that, there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. And I definitely did some fawning. I consider myself quite a social coward for a long time. But my real trauma response was fight. I looked at my past. I looked at my present. No bright future. No trust fund. No safety net. And I just said, okay, work harder, aim higher, get smarter. That was my trauma response. Work harder, aim higher, get smarter. Work harder, aim higher, get smarter. And so I became this sort of type A super achiever. Again, in hindsight, straight A's all through high school. Scholarships and financial aid, because we went from upper middle class to basically I get free lunch at school now because our income is so low after my stepdad left. Mom traded in her BMW for a little Honda Civic, and we had to bootstrap. So bootstrapped my way through high school, straight A's, got tons of financial aid and scholarships, got to go to my dream college was WPI. It's like a mini MIT, Worcester Polytechnic Institute. My dream was to be a computer engineer. And so I went for computer engineering and got my bachelor's in that. And then I stayed for my master's in business. And it was $50,000 a year. So I went from, I can't wait to get into my dream school, but then my stepdad left, and essentially it was, even if I do get in, I don't know how I'm going to go. Fast forward. I go into corporate. I work for a bunch of tech companies. So I work for iRobot. I work for Sensata Technologies, which used to be Texas Instruments. I work for a company called Oz Development, a company called Lens Americas. Eventually I landed at a company called Cognex. Cognex sells industrial automation equipment into manufacturing facilities all across the world. I do inside sales engineering there. I eventually get promoted to outside sales engineering. I manage a territory of Vermont, Connecticut, and Western Massachusetts, and I'm on the road, and I'm making, at this point, almost $200,000 a year. And I'm in my early to mid-20s. I paid off $84,000 worth of debt in a single year back in 2014, and I put away all my money, and I was used to spending very little because in high school and college I was broke. So my answer was just get wealthy. So I invested. I had a Vanguard account, and I invested $150,000 over time. It accumulated. And I bought a bunch of ETFs, which are index funds, and tech company stocks. And I bought a 2004 Volkswagen Passat for $5,000 cash. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a mortgage. I was dating a woman named Courtney. We lived on a lake, and my rent was $500 a month. It was a small place. And I was just working and banking and investing all of my money. And my expenses were super low. So why not? That's when I got in my own car accident. So I'm 26 years old. I'm up in New Hampshire with my little cousin. The one member of my mom's family that actually did come back 8 years later, mind you. My second cousin, Dan, was in the car with me. We were going to TGI Fridays. I look down at the GPS. I look up. I see the brightest lights I'd ever seen. I'm on the wrong side of the road. Dark winter night back in 2015 where the snowbanks are covering the yield sign. My fault. Wrong side of the road. Cross the double yellows. I look up and I see in front of me what I thought was a Mack truck. 2 things saved my life. Number 1, the Volkswagen Passat that I bought for $5,000 cash, I used to call this car the Tank. German engineered steel trap of a car. The entire front end is completely smashed in, but the frame stayed. Super safe car. Thank you so much, Volkswagen. It was a heavy car. It was a safe car. Both airbags deployed. He hurt his face in the airbag. He hurt his knee on the airbag. I hurt my face in the airbag. Physically, we were okay. But mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, I was messed up because, the other thing that saved my life is it wasn't a Mack truck. It was a lift-kitted pickup truck. There's lots of those up in New Hampshire.
A lot of them in South
Yes,
Louisiana.
lots of them. Yeah. Fortunately, it was not a Mack truck. But I had that moment. Of this is it. There's no way we survive this. Computer engineer, right? Boom. No way. Calculate it. Done. Both airbags deploy. We're okay. Physically, we're good. Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, my dad died in a car accident when he was 28. I've seen pictures of his car, and the pictures of my car don't look very different. So I am absolutely just existential quarter-life crisis. What if that was it? Facing mortality and every regret I've ever had all at once. And so that's when I questioned my existence. That's when I realized that I was deeply unfulfilled. That's when I decided to metaphorically Phoenix burnt down from it's called an ego death. Everything I thought I knew, everything I thought I was, Everything I wanted others to believe about me, everything I wanted to believe about me burnt down, and it was nothing but truth, and just you really get to rebuild your whole existence from those ashes. And that's when I realized, and this is in hindsight again, prior to 26, it's very clear to me now that I was very successful but deeply unfulfilled. I was professionally developed and achievement-oriented and, bachelor's and master's and blah, 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 resume, cover letter, LinkedIn, professional development. But I wasn't personally developed. I wasn't self-improvement oriented. And after that car accident, I went all in on self-improvement, personal growth, mental health, get to know me. Then I flipped the script. I end up happy, healthy, productive, fit, healthy, loving life, fulfilled as hell, but I went broke. Liquidated all my assets, started my own company, ended up broke. So I went from successful and unfulfilled to fulfilled and unsuccessful, which also kind of sucks, to be honest. And so I actually think success is fairly easy, and I think fulfillment is fairly easy. I think doing them together is nearly impossible. But it is doable. That's why I say nearly impossible. It's very difficult. And so now here I am 9 years later from that car accident, and I can authentically say I want my future to be an amplified version of what it already is. And that's what I help people with now, which is how do you create both success and fulfillment? How are you both personally developed and professionally developed? How do you win in your real life and in the economy? And that's really what I do for business owners now.
Now, in this transition, corporate life to entrepreneurship, what were the most significant wins and losses?
The win was having the time and space to recontemplate my life and focus on the win. Luckily, I had a huge nest egg, right? I had plenty of cash. I had liquidated, I consistently liquidated all my stocks, so 150 grand, and some of them went up, some of them went down, but I liquidated 10 grand at a time. So I had the time for like years, a couple years, where I didn't really have to make a ton of money. I could just kind of live. My expenses were low. So the win was I could have the time and space to get to know who I am. And that's a hell of a luxury. I mean, I spent years. It's a blessing. Yeah, I spent years just learning me. I mean, I bought books and I bought courses and I just got to work on me. And I got to learn how to build a personal brand, and I got to focus on fitness, and I was a fitness coach, fitness competitor, fitness model. I did 42 photo shoots, fitness modeling. That was a dream I had when I was a kid. So that was the wins. The losses were, so PTSD, I think they're trying to shift it, and don't quote me on this, but I think they're trying to shift it to, instead of post-traumatic stress disorder, they're trying to shift it to post-traumatic stress indicator or something like that, PTSI. And the reason why is because I think the identity of disorder ends up perpetuating it. But again, don't quote me on any of that. What I will say is that I had PTSD from the car accident, 100%. I was claustrophobic. Ceiling fans bothered me. Crowds bothered me. I remember I had to puff my chest up and sort of walk in and out of closed doorways because I was claustrophobic. And double yellow lines scared the hell out of me, so I kept getting pulled over because I was too far on my side of the road. I was afraid to go anywhere near double yellow lines again. And so it took me a while to get back to center. And I did that through exposure therapy. Fortunately, the police were very kind to me because they said, listen, you're on the wrong side of the road. Like, you're too far on your side. And I said, I just got in a bad car accident. I'm sorry. And they were very kind. And I also kept popping my tires because I was too far on the right. And there was
finding debris.
Yeah, exactly. Finding tons of debris. So those were really hard times for me, where I was just trying to get back to neutral. And I also, the other piece of this that was actually ridiculously difficult, actually the hardest part, when you do a 180 like that. So I had tons of high school friends and college friends and corporate friends, and I partied, and I was achievement. My paradigm was achievement first, friends second, fun third. And my whole world revolved around achievement, friends, and fun. And after my car accident, I mean, I was not oriented toward any of that at all anymore. It was fulfillment, fitness, and growth, personal growth. And so I kind of lost all my friends in a way. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand, and it's taken me years and years and years to figure this out, but relationships are built on a common core value. All of them. Like, all my friends in high school loved Halo. Why? Because we became friends through the video game of Halo. We weren't friends just to be friends. It's just like when we grew up. My best friend growing up, his name is Keith, and we were neighbors. We would never have been friends if we weren't neighbors. So it was built on the fact that we both loved Star Wars, and we liked to pretend we had lightsabers, and we would fight each other, and like it was based on geography, not more than core values. And one of the things that I think is really hard for people to realize, and this is very easy intellectually and very hard heart-wise, is that most of the relationships that you have from your past were built on a past version of you. And so when you grow and you evolve and you change and you shift, particularly paradigm shift, and paradigm's a fancy word for what you believe the meaning of life is. So what is the most meaningful to you? For me, it's growth, it's service, and it's quality of life. And that's what I'm focused on at all times. And so for the past friends, college friends, high school friends, corporate friends, none of them were focused on personal development, self-improvement, mental health, personal growth as much as I was. So I kind of had to essentially lose and sail away from almost all of my past relationships because they're still stuck in their old paradigm. And that's okay. I'm not making that wrong. But I'll tell you what, it was very painful to have so many people make fun of me, like, oh, you're a bodybuilder now? And, you know, you're into personal growth now. And like, for some reason, self-improvement isn't cool. It's not cool. I mean, for whatever reason, getting better and focusing on getting better is not like that common. It's like alarming, to be honest. It's actually quite alarming. Well, so here's the thing, right? You wrote a self-help book, self-improvement book, but it'll never be as successful as Harry Potter. It'll never be as successful as 50 Shades of Grey. But the truth of the matter is think about it this way. Self-improvement requires you to look at all of your inadequacies. Looking at your inadequacies doesn't feel good. So why would your book might as well be, hey, pay me to look at your inadequacies. It's very hard to do that. That's why this industry is so hard to win in, particularly if you're being honest, right? It's not fluffy, feel-good stuff. And so even this episode is not nearly as endearing as one that's a little more fluffy, feel-good, entertaining. And so at the end of the day, I think the most important thing for all of us is to realize that you are unique. You can uncover that uniqueness and then sail in that direction. Most of the reason people don't achieve their goals, I've come to find over time, is because their goals are based on low self-awareness. Right? Based on the peer group.
Most of the kids in the neighborhood like to play baseball, so you went and played baseball, but you were a swimmer.
Exactly.
You just tried to be as good of a baseball player as you could.
To fit in, to belong. We all want belonging. We all crave belonging. And so we don't individuate as well as we could or should. And then we are conditioned to be a certain way through our social peer group, which we didn't necessarily choose geographically. And then we eventually wake up in a quarter life or midlife crisis and realize that we don't really like who we are anymore. And then hopefully you can reinvent yourself and reinvent your life based on that. And then you actually will be fulfilled. And then eventually you'll be successful. More successful than you were, hopefully, when you were living the false life, quote unquote.
Insights. How did the insights you got from Bronnie Ware's book and Tony Robbins' TED Talk impact that decision to go all in?
So when I had the near-death experience, it's not a coincidence that I saw a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, because I was definitely deeply regretful. You know what's interesting is I've analyzed this upside down and sideways. I coach a lot of people over the years, and I have 24 people on my roster. My youngest is 16, my oldest is 63, and I say that because I've learned so much from all these different walks of life. I learn more from my clients than they learn from me. It's because I have a statistic. I I have a statistical sample set of so many different walks of life, men, women, all different countries, all different cultures, all different backgrounds from all over the world. And I'd learned so much through understanding what is common between all of them and what is unique about all of them. It's been really fascinating. And so I don't think that statistically speaking, I made any poor choices than most people. I actually think, statistically speaking, I made some really good choices. But when I looked back after 26 facing mortality, I was so regretful. And I think most people are not honest about regret. I think regret is the best teacher in the world. I think the two best teachers in the world are regret and fulfillment. If something is deeply fulfilling and meaningful to you, I think that's the best teacher. Why? And what does that mean about you? And what does that mean about your life? And then regret, regret might as well be, hey, highest self Alan, talking to human self Alan. What the hell was that about, man? Right? Talk about the best teacher ever. And so there's your conscience. Regret is your conscience coming in saying, I don't know, man, this is not aligned, and you know it. And then your ego is like, well, no, it is aligned. Yes, definitely. Everyone starts out as a little fish. And you have to learn how to grow. And ironically, you either consistently get outside your comfort zone and eat humble pie and learn how to grow, or you stay in a small pond on purpose to protect your ego. And I think, unfortunately, that's what I did too much prior to 26. After 26, there was no more of that. It was basically just go eat humble pie every single day. And but anyway, so the Bronnie Ware thing, I actually got to interview her 4 years later, but I found a book. So after my car accident, I was in all the regrets of my poor choices. And I found this book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. So here I am, I almost died in a car accident. And I'm full of regret. So, of course, that title is going to jump off the page for me. The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I still have a flashcard. It's in my hands right now. And I've wrote this flashcard years and years and years. You can see it's all ripped and tattered, and it's actually cut in half. But it has all 5 regrets. And so if you haven't read her book, I highly recommend it. She worked in hospice for 8 years. She's from Australia. And she worked with the terminally ill. And she noticed that all of them, most of them, had similar regrets at the end of their life. I wish, I wish, I wish. And now I call it reverse engineering regret. The top 5 regrets of the dying, the number 1 regret of the dying is I wish I had lived a life true to myself and not what others expected of me. And I was definitely guilty of that. And then after my car accident, I said, you know what? Nope. I'm never, ever, ever going to live my life based on what others expect of me. And I'm going to live my life from what I consider my purpose, my calling, my core values, my aspirations. And I've lived a life very congruent with that for 9 years now. I'm definitely much more fulfilled because honestly, if you are living for any sort of perception or status or belonging with a group of people that you don't necessarily vibe with, you're pretty much not going to be fulfilled because you're not in alignment with who you really are. And you're not in alignment with virtue. And so I did drugs. I drank too much. I was not nearly as virtuous as I am now. And I wasn't a bad person or anything like that. Like, I'm not trying to beat myself up here. I mean, I made some really good choices. I always tried to help people. I tried to be a good person. But I was unfulfilled. I drank too much and too often. And I definitely unintentionally hurt some people at some times. And I think that I was arrogant in hindsight. And not more than most, to be honest. I mean, there's a lot of people that are very, very arrogant and they don't even know it yet. But maybe they haven't had their wake-up call yet. And so I try to have empathy for that. So my car accident was my ultimate wake-up call. And that was the beginning of a new life for me. And ever since then, it's been, how do I keep centered? How do I stay humble? But also really grow into who I'm meant to be and serve the world in a way that I believe is congruent with what the world needs most.
Your podcast, I would say, is successful, right? We're over 1,700 episodes. That's a lot. I'm curious what strategies, I mean, probably for my own personal reasons, but I'm curious which strategies have you found most effective in positively impacting your audience?
The most important one is the simplest, but not the easiest. And it's get to know your listeners. Kevin and I mean, we started coaching for free 7 years ago. and we would just get to know our listeners. We'd get on free call after free call after free call. We would meet up with them, some of them ones in our area. Just get to know your listeners. And so a lot of podcasters, they don't have a lot of clarity on who their listeners are, and they think that it's the listener's job to reach out to them. It's the opposite, actually. It's your job to reach out to your listener and learn who you're serving, and it's a reciprocal relationship. So we thought that we were both bodybuilders, and we were both, I don't know if bro is the right term, but it was a couple guys, bodybuilder guys, who were talking deep conversations about self-improvement. It was called the Hyper-Conscious Podcast. Change the way you think, change the way you act, change the way you live. I had a podcast called Conversations Change Lives. Kevin was my first guest. I was his first guest, and then we teamed up and had the worst podcast name of all time, which was the Conversations Change Lives meets Hyper-Conscious Podcast. And then eventually we went all in on Hyper-Conscious, and then we did that for probably 400 or 500 episodes, and then we rebranded to Next Level University, and that's what we are now. But through that whole process, we started to get to know our listeners, and we thought it was going to be guys. We thought it was going to be fitness-oriented bodybuilders like us. It was women who struggle with courage, clarity, and confidence, who want more fulfillment out of their career and their intimate relationships. And that's been our primary demographic ever since. It's evolved a bit. 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, mostly women, 80% I would say. And we now realize in hindsight, and this is really important for anyone listening if you want to start your own business, it's obvious in hindsight, most things are. Kevin and I had a common core value of self-improvement. That's what the podcast is built on. Holistic self-improvement, health, wealth, life, and love. But we had a common core wound we didn't know about. And it's the core wound that really connected us. We both didn't have fathers, and we both had low self-worth. And we didn't know it. He had low self-belief and low self-worth. I had just low self-worth. I had a lot of self-belief. And so we've both realized over time that is the common core wound of all our listeners. They don't value themselves at the level that they could or should. Not all of them. Some of them are actually overinflated egos and over self-worth. And they have low self-belief and don't know it, and that's a whole other conversation. But most of our listeners don't keep the promises they make to themselves. They don't invest in themselves. They treat themselves poorly, speak to themselves poorly, that kind of thing. And so they have low self-worth. And we never knew that was actually the resonance. That was what was resonating with people. And so if you're out there listening right now, check in. Do you have self-belief? 0 to 10. Self-belief, I'll define them. Self-belief is how much do you believe in your ability to build the castle, metaphorically. Self-worth is I deserve to live here, and I'm going to protect and honor the castle and not let people come in and spill beer on the carpets. And I've earned a living here. I'm worth living here, that kind of thing. And so they're two very different things. I think belief is external competence, and I always had that a lot. But self-worth is more personal value and belief in who you are as a person and your own value and building that value and investing in yourself and honoring your boundaries and keeping the promises you make to yourself and making sure you treat yourself as well as someone you love. And a lot of people with low self-worth, they don't take good care of themselves, which then makes them feel even less valuable. And then they get walked on by bullies who are arrogant and egotistical. Well, Al Bundy is a good example of someone with inflated self-worth. His identity is still tied to past accomplishments, not who he is now. Right? And that happens, unfortunately. And that was happening to me a little bit before my car accident as well.
How do you balance heart-driven inspiration with practical, no-nonsense advice when coaching individuals from, like you said, diverse backgrounds?
I used to say this. Anyone can teach you how to lose weight. Sleep, hydration, nutrition, training, mobility, breath work, and supplementation. I have the 7 things that are fundamental to losing weight. But not just losing weight, being in shape. Really what it comes down to is a math equation. bring in less calories, expend more calories. So anyone can teach you that, right? That's it. Eat less, exercise more. Yes, exactly. Simple, but not easy. Eat less, exercise more, you will lose weight. That is just the law of conservation of energy. And I used to say this, anyone can teach you how to lose weight. Almost no one can get you to actually do it. Anyone can teach you how to lose weight. Almost no one can get you to actually do it. Accountability. I have one person I coach. His name's Cole. Awesome. 24-year-old. Awesome. Tracks habits, metrics, goals, milestones. We got it all. Great. On fire, in momentum. And I'm not kidding. I mean, he's struggling on the day-to-day, but his momentum is wild. It's really good. I said, here's what we're going to do. He said, I need accountability. I need more accountability. I said, here's what we'll do. I've never had this not work. I said, so we do habit tracking. And so essentially imagine like 15 habits per day. If he gets a 1 for every single one, he gets 100% at the end of the day. All right. He said, I want more accountability. I said, I've never not had this work. It's called a commitment device. I'm going to charge you double for this session. And then I'm going to take that money if you don't hit 100%. Now, you can lie to me and you can lie to yourself, but that's not going to benefit either of us. So let's be honest here. You're going to lose that money if you don't hit 100% on your tracker. He hasn't missed since. And I said, if you do hit 100%, that will count to your next session. And every single time we've done another session, he does bi-weekly. No, he does weekly now. He's like, just keep that. I want to keep the commitment device. So like, I'm going to re-up the commitment device. So he has not missed. He's had 100% days every day for probably 2 months now. And he keeps rolling over that extra session because we will do more as human beings not to lose than we will to win. Baseball's a good metaphor for this. You'll do anything not to make errors. Most human beings are like that. They will play not to fail way harder than they'll play to win. People will do anything not to look bad, so you have to put yourself at risk. That's why you have to sign up for the marathon and tell your friends and family. If you want to run every day, two types of people. One, they both want to run every day for their good health. Okay, congratulations. One of them doesn't tell anyone, tries to do it by themselves. The other person hires a coach, makes a commitment device, tells their friends and family, signs up for a half marathon in 4 months, and says, can you guys please put it on your calendar and be there? Guess who's running every single day? The one that put their ego at risk. The metrics and the KPIs, there's a book called Measure What Matters by one of the main consultants at Google in the early days, which is 26 years ago now. Google's 26 years old now. But it talks about OKRs, objectives and key results. And what my program does with my clients, I don't coach a single person anymore that doesn't track habits. And so if you want to talk practicality, I've been tracking habits every day for 9 years. I have a habit tracker in Google Sheets. It's called Peak Performance Tracking. I named it myself. I used to do it in these little black notebooks, and then eventually I digitized it. But there's 3 MIMs, most important metrics, that roll up to the main top 3 goals for the year, which roll up to your dreams. And then those are broken into quarterly milestones. And then the daily inch pebbles are your habits. And it's this sort of cool thing we call dreamlining. And your inch pebbles lead to your milestones lead to your goals lead to your dreams. And it breaks down these huge dreams into tiny daily action items. And it's very practical, and every single one of my people on my roster do it. Everyone on my team, the core team does it. We have 22 people, and the core team, the freelancers don't, but the core team does. And it's unbelievable what can happen when you hold yourself accountable. It's like, we do a group coaching program. We've been doing it every quarter we're on our 15th group now, so however many, that's 3.5 years, coming up on 4 years. Yeah, coming up on 4 years. And it's a group of 10 people. We have an assistant coach, and then Kevin and I are main coaches, and we do bi-weekly sessions for 12 weeks. It's essentially achieve more in 12 weeks than you ever have, but it's a Mario Kart booster for the rest of your life. It's supposed to last. And it's based on these habit trackers, and we start with 3 goals and 3 habits. That whole reverse engineering process is literally what I do for a living. I love it. because you can take any goal and you can, here's the, and this will be the last thing I share because I do got to jump. If I can get you to track the right things, you will focus on the right persons, places, things, and ideas. You will invest your time, effort, and money into the right persons, places, things, and ideas, which the byproduct of that will be the right result. So, but it's very convoluted if you don't understand what's upstream and what's downstream.
Exactly.
So okay. And so that process of reverse engineering, for people who are very confident in their ability to create outcomes in their life, they're probably mathematically certain. What is confidence? It's certainty. I get certainty through math. I'm not hoping that we have enough listens next month. So I'm not hoping we win next month. I know how much we made in July. We made $22,104. Okay? I'm not hoping for the future going bright. It sounds like I'm overly confident when in reality it's based on a past trend and it's based on inputs and outputs and what I call systems thinking and reverse engineering. And so what I try to do is ask my clients, what do you want to achieve? And then we reverse engineer it, but then it comes down to actually doing the things that suck. Doing things that suck is a part of the process in order to achieve great results. There's a reason we don't all have a six-pack.
The reverse engineering is, not everybody needs it, but when I find someone that needs it, it's transformative this month. Like it changes
Agreed.
right away.
It changes everything. But then you have to be patient, because if I remember Kev, he was doing this thing and he's like, dude, it's not working. No, you don't know that yet. You've only been doing it for a month and a half. And then we got 19 clients in Q3 that year from him sticking with it. So you don't know the system's not working until after you do it long enough to actually have it pay off too. So you can't abandon ship and say this isn't working, because
he's lucky he had you, because you were the math guy saying we don't have a complete data set yet.
Exactly. We don't have I know. Yeah, exactly. And so that's why you need an emotionally driven, socially relatable guy like Kev plus a math mind in order for a real business to work. There's always this scientist and the artist. That's very common. You need a scientist and an artist. One's experience driven, one's results driven. You teach each other a lot as long as you have a common core value. So
it's been great. Thank you very much. I mean, we could probably talk for hours. Maybe one day I'll come on your podcast. But to our listeners, thank you today. And just remember, as Alan has probably learned, if you want to grow, sometimes you have to do something inappropriate.
Thank you for having me.